Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. We've got a great show for you today. I know. I say it all the time, but I mean it because sometimes my guests are just wonderful and they've got a really cool message. And this is one of those. And her name is Delphia. How's it going, Delphia?
That is correct. Yes, so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, and one of the things that, the main thing that you have spent your life cultivating and working on is the concept and the ability for us to be inclusive. In fact, you've written a book on it, and the name of the book is Including You, Leading Inclusion from Where You Are. And is the book out yet, by the way?
It is out. It's on Amazon and on all of the major book hubs. And yes, it's out, and hopefully people are picking it up, and they are picking it up and consuming the information.
Oh, that is awesome, because you have been in HR, you have led businesses, you've worked with all kinds of different businesses, from retail to banking to all kinds of different operations, all with the intention of creating inclusion in the workspace, because I think that, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, we're better off together than we are separately.
Absolutely, 100%. We can accomplish so much together versus going at everything independently and separate, and focus on independent objectives, realizing that we all connect. We need to do that.
And the interesting thing about that is that when you're working with a business and you're, say, working with a CEO, and they talk about the fact that they've got high turnover and their place isn't very inclusive and stuff, and you can help them. And when you help them, you're changing the culture of an entire company. That's got to make you feel good.
It does, especially when I get the reflection messages after we've gone through programming and strategy, and I have CEOs and leaders, HR leaders, look back and say, wow, I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to work with you, because my focus is really to create spaces where everyone thrives. That's it, everyone, not just one demographic group, but everyone. And so I think that is the power that I bring to the universe, to the people that I engage with. And that's just who I am.
Why is it that, and I'm hoping that you can shed some light on this, why is it that in some circles, in some corners of businesses and personal relationships and stuff, people don't value inclusivity the way that they could, if they recognize that if we all work together and use our gifts for a positive way, that we can do great things?
Yeah, I think there are a number of reasons why. I think the first thing is that I think is a common denominator is that we're human and we're selfish, right? We are human, and it's okay to be human. It's okay to, want to self-preserve and want to have the world cater to you in a way that you feel is relevant and valued and makes you feel that way. That's perfectly okay. But I think that going a step beyond that, why it doesn't happen is because it's sometimes uncomfortable. We don't know how to get out of our shell all of the time in order to invite others into our space. And because of the level of uncertainty, because of the environment, because of lack of trust, all of these things start to filter into our head when we are presented with the opportunity to engage with other people. Right? When we meet someone for the first time, there's what everyone's heard of, the 30-second impression. It actually takes less than 30 seconds to formulate an impression about someone, but it's based off of some very superficial things that cause us to formulate a judgment about people. And that judgment either gives us opportunity to think about how do we engage and create inclusion, or it causes us to put up walls and limit that opportunity for inclusion.
Well, I wanted to introduce Burchelle, and I'm sure you're not going to be able to see her, but you might be able to hear her. Burchelle, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and I think I remember Delphia from when we did our 15-minute interview. I just had to come and pop in and say hello and be involved in some of this conversation. I love the work that you do, and I can't wait to hear everything that you have to say within this show. So,
Fantastic. Thank you. Hi again.
yes.
And I wanted to ask you, when we talk about walls, why is it that some people live in the world of what I call, they live in the world of hate, division, and fear, rather than including everybody and celebrating our differences?
Yeah, it's sometimes easier, right? Depending on your experience and the bubble. If you live in a bubble or if you've had greater exposure, it's sometimes a level of fear. There's some vulnerability with getting outside of that bubble and finding the space to, get beyond what we don't know. And when we aren't familiar with something, we automatically go into a space of distrust, again, fear, and all of these things that create negativity. And so if we're not astute enough to really figure out how to not turn that into a hatred concept or a stereotype about someone else or a different group of people, then I think that's where it starts from. There's a lot of research that's been done that took some information to understand how do we get from just differences to ascend through the thought process of hate and ultimately sometimes in some cases genocide, right? And that is a interesting paradigm and an interesting shift that if we don't take the time to check ourselves, we continue to ascend in a space where it can lead down the road of hatred and all of the negative things. But there is some self-work that's required to prevent that. And it's uncomfortable sometimes.
100%.
But uncomfortable is good. Burchelle, do you have a question or a thought?
Really just thinking, was there something else originally going into doing what you decided to do that you were doing at the time and something steered your career into a different direction and then just stayed with you? Or is this something you knew that you always wanted to be able to achieve these kind of things?
Yeah, no, I definitely did not always know it. I didn't know when I was in college, I had no idea of what I wanted to do. I went from communications to law to this, all of these things. So when I was in college, I had my head set on going to law school. I did go and I went and I realized very quickly that probably wasn't the best path for me. And so I ended up going into the workforce, started my career in banking and went on to get my master's. And while I was there, I ascended the ladder in the banking world through officership and was responsible for a number of branches in a region. And I recognized that we were having a challenge with building relationships with certain communities, in urban settings particularly. Our branch managers, our leaders weren't able to, I shouldn't say they weren't able to, but we did not see the ROI for being in those locations. And we didn't see the connectivity to the community that would help to precipitate that. And so I started, doing a little bit of research and barking up a couple of trees, trying to understand what this was about. And at the time, I was not in the space of HR, wasn't in the space of inclusion. And the president said, Delphia, if it's that important to you, then figure out what it is, right? And so I figured it out and started the very first inclusion program, sensitivity and inclusion program at the bank. And it was something that helped to open the eyes to opportunity, to how we can engage with one another for productivity. And so that really was the change for me, my career stint in banking that has stuck with me forever.
Beautiful.
And, I have a quick story if I can tell it, because I want everybody to understand that the experiences that we gain in life with other people who don't look like us and don't seem to be like us can be very instructive and very positive. When I was in the restaurant business, it was a Mexican restaurant, and we had, I became general manager of one of them, and there was what they called at the time, this is in the 80s, the Mexican pipeline. Because there were people that had come from Mexico, and this is in the days when Ronald Reagan had reorganized the immigration practices. And so I had several of these gentlemen and ladies working there that were from Mexico. Now, I never met them, and I didn't really understand Spanish very well, but I'll tell you, the work that they did and the dedication that they had was every bit, and in many cases was better than the folks that grew up here and were educated here necessarily. And so I learned that people are, products of their environment, but at the same time, we're more alike than we are different.
Yes, that's so very true.
And they worked very, very hard. As a matter of fact, I was transferred to another restaurant later on, and I developed my own Mexican pipeline because these people work very, very hard. And it pains my heart to see what's going on in the country now when we're calling illegal aliens rather than immigrants, and that we're saying they're a different color than us, or they speak a different language than us, so we need to get rid of them. I'm so sad that we've gone that way, because that's not very inclusive.
No, it's not. And I say it 1,000 times, and I'll shout it from the mountaintops. If we get to the root issue of the common denominator of humanity, human-centric integrity, recognizing that, we all have, we all are in this together, no matter what demographic, no matter what background you have, the human factor is stronger than anything. Going back to what you said, we're stronger together than apart. That human-centric focus is what will lead us to the point of getting away from such divisive mindsets and thought processes that ostracize groups and individuals.
It really is a shame. And I know, Rochelle, before you go, I'd like you to ask one more question or to say goodbye on your way out the door.
Yes, I will have to say goodbye. I'm so sorry, but thank you for being here, Delphia. I will be on the other side, continuing the conversation with you guys. And if we happen to have you back, then I will be there for that as well.
Fantastic. Great to have you and hear you again, Rochelle.
Yes, you as well. Take care of yourself and have fun with Kevin. He's actually doing really well today. He's had a long day and he still has high spirits. So I'm excited that we get to finish off our week with you. It is just incredibly powerful. And thank you to everybody listening in. There's a lot to learn from Delphia. She taught me so much just in our 15-minute interview. So stay in tune.
Thank you.
And we need to take our first break, and we will be right back with Delphia. How's it going? No, Delphia Howze. We'll be right back.
Bye-bye.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and Rochelle is off and running and stuff. But Delphia Howze is with us, and I got to ask you, I don't understand, and maybe you can help me with this.
Sure.
We have all kinds of ethnic restaurants in the United States. We have Italian, we have Irish, we have got Mexican, we've got Chinese, we've got Jamaican food, we've got all these wonderful places that we like to go. Why is it that we separate the culture and the food from different places, yet we cannot abide the people that created them? I don't understand. Would you help me?
I wish that I could help you. I wish. I'm a foodie and I love all of that food. Yes. And, to your point, if it weren't for the people, we wouldn't have that. Food brings people together. I've been at many organizations where they have these potlucks and they, bring different cuisines in. And excuse me, it's interesting when the food is there from different places, everyone is there tasting it. Everyone's there eating it and enjoying it. But then it's like they take their plates, they go back to their offices or what have you, and then that separatism mentality kind of kicks in. But yeah, food brings people together, and we love it. But I wish that I had the answer for that, because it is something that's amazing to watch.
It really doesn't make any sense to me. But there's a lot of things these days that don't make a great deal of sense to me. Because I'm a firm believer that we are all connected, we are all one, we are all part of the same human family. And it doesn't matter what color we are, it doesn't matter who we love, it doesn't matter what sex we are or what sex we want to be. None of that has any bearing upon the basic human ability for us to be inclusive to everybody.
Right. I definitely agree. I definitely agree. We just, I keep going back to, we're so much stronger together. And when we see all that, those commonalities, we all have hands, we all have, we are structured in a way that we are designed to want to connect with others. That's the bottom line. We are not a sect of individuals or people who wants to be separated or individualized or by themselves. Connection is a human need, and that connection can be found anywhere. It doesn't have to be found in only one corner of the world. It's something that is abundant. And we don't take advantage of that as greatly as we possibly could.
I have to laugh because I live in Seattle and we have the Seattle Seahawks. Mm-hmm. And the Seattle Seahawks sell out every game. have for years. And we have got a diverse group of people that go to Seahawk games. We have black people. We have white people. We have ethnic people of all stripes and all kinds. And they're all Seahawks fans. And so they all get together at this stadium. And when the Seahawks score or do well, they cheer loud. They give high fives to strangers. They hug other strangers. Everybody is all together because we have a common purpose.
Yeah.
And the common purpose is the Seahawks. And then the game's over. Everybody leaves. And they're swearing at each other in the parking lot. And we revert back to where we end up being in our little tribal groups and stuff. Why can't we keep that sense of camaraderie for each other?
Yeah, I wish that we could. I really do. Food, games, entertainment, there are so many pieces of so many elements of commonality that we can connect on outside of, our differences. I don't know why we can't, but I do believe that a strong reason for it is because oftentimes we don't take the time to recognize how we're playing a part in it. It's always the other person's fault. It's always somebody else, right? And if we really look in the mirror and think about what we are projecting out into the world and how we're inviting others into the world, I think that's a great starting point. It's looking at ourselves versus pointing that finger and casting those aspersions on others.
Yeah, and we do it all the time. And the other thing that kills me is I lived in a cul-de-sac in my house for a long time. There were 12 houses in the cul-de-sac. And typically what everybody had a garage door opener. So when they would come home, they would take their car and they'd open the garage door and then they'd put the car in the garage and they'd close the garage door. And that's the last time you saw them. There were people that lived in my neighborhood on my block who I did not meet for like 5 or 6 years because we are so separate. And it really, what it took was one of the newer people in the cul-de-sac said, let's do a barbecue. And it was for the 4th of July. And so everybody brought stuff and he put up a table and was grilling stuff in the middle of the cul-de-sac. And that's how people started to meet each other. And then it became a community.
Yes. And it only takes one act. It's not a very difficult act. Think of how easy it was for that person to say, hey, let's do a barbecue, right? It didn't take a new class. It didn't take a new degree. It didn't take anything major. It was just a concept of let's getting together. And so I tell people all of the time, it's not difficult to create inclusive environments and to build connections with one another. You can take small incremental steps and do very small things that have major impact on how you can build community and how you can learn from others. I bet you at that cookout, you all learned things about your neighbors that you didn't know and that you had commonality and that you had found some similarities with some of your neighbors.
I was living next door to a local city policeman for 5 years before I knew he was a local city policeman. And had I known that, I would have felt much more comfortable in my house because I had a cop next door.
Right next door, right? And so think about it. If we do not step outside of ourselves to recognize the reality that we can bring so much to the table to connect with others and bring others into our world, we miss the opportunity, right? We miss the opportunity to build and to eliminate those divisions.
You mentioned earlier about selfishness. Well, I've got a real selfish reason to be inclusive. If you're a business owner and you choose to be inclusive of everybody and treat everybody with respect, kindness, and equality, your turnover will go down,
Mhm.
your client or your employee morale will go up, your productivity will go up, and your business will make more money. I
Yes.
don't understand why so many businesses or people don't understand that, because isn't that a basic concept?
It's a basic concept. It's a research concept. It's a proven concept. Absolutely. Research has shown that organizations that have inclusive environments are at least 70% more productive than non-inclusive environments. And financially, as you said, the impact is profound. And so when people feel included, they do their best work. They're able to be who they are. That's what we want. And when we're able to be who we are, we're more creative, more productive, more motivated. And that's what we want to harness of employees, so that the ultimate end goal of the organization is success and productivity towards whatever the mission is. But when you don't have that, it's you lack engagement. You miss the opportunity to have those high levels of engagement in organizations. So it's really, I think of three things: psychological safety, inclusion, and engagement. It's kind of like a trifecta, right? If you don't have the three of those going on, it's a little bit of a challenge. But if you work to ensure that you have a psychologically safe environment, you work to ensure that you have an environment that values and welcomes individuals through inclusion from all backgrounds, and you work to make sure that engagement is a reality for employees and that they feel engaged based off of the psychological safety and the elements of inclusion, you can't lose. An organization can't lose if you have the three of those.
That's exactly right. And I know, because you're a professional, you've seen lots and lots of P&Ls. Which, in case you're wondering what that is, that's a profit and loss statement.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen lots of them. I have yet, and I've asked a bunch of people, so I'm going to ask you now.
Yes.
I have yet to see a P&L with a line item that it says turnover and lists a cost per each person that you turn over in the course of a year, because you have to include the loss of their productivity, the training of the new person, the development of their productivity over time, and then if they leave, sometimes I've told assistant managers of mine, if we lose a key employee, it's going to take 5 employees to get another one.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So if that was a line on the P&L,
Yeah.
and you were then being held accountable
Yes.
for the numbers of people that you turned over in a year, that might change that might change how people look at the inclusivity and taking care of each other.
I definitely agree. And when you think about that, that would be a great thing to implement for organizations to implement, is making sure that they do that, doing that cost analysis, because the reality is, depending on the role, right, within the organization too, right, that number is going to go up and up and up depending on the different types of roles. And so when we see the cost of losing, that's when we wake up. When we, that's when we wake up. That's when we feel the pain. That's where we feel the challenges, and then begin to try to find solutions and think differently. But that's let's encourage all organizations to put that on their P&L today.
Exactly, because I was the general manager of a restaurant, and I was transferred to another one, like I said. And the current GM of that particular facility, I said, so what's your turnover like here? Because it was a different city and may have been a different climate and so forth. And he said, oh, it's about 250, 300%, I think. And I said, why is it so high? And he said, well, that's just the way it is here. We got lots of transient people and all that kind of stuff. And I said, don't you spend all your time just trying to hire somebody? And he said, well, yeah, it's a real pain, but we really have no choice, because, people leave.
Yeah.
I come to find out that he was responsible for the reason why people were leaving, and that turnover dropped when I took over Not that I'm a great manager or anything, but turnover dropped from 300% to less than 100%.
Yeah.
And that's still too high
Yeah.
because you're still turning a lot of people over. But
Mhm.
but and the business became profitable.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why that is such a hoity-toity new thinking kind of concept. I thought that was just basic math.
No, not if you don't want to see it, right?
Oh, that's
See it, because that can reflect on, as you said, it can reflect on my management skills. It can reflect on, me as a leader, right? People, we take things very personally. So if you don't want to see it, oh, you're not going to look at that number. Absolutely not. But if you're open to it, then that number is not going to be as damaging to your ego as the converse. So I think that we have to definitely give recognition to the fact that there's still some pride in that as to why organizations may not look at that as diligently as they could.
and I've got an easy way for us to fix all that.
Do tell.
If your bonus is based on turnover, I guarantee you turnover would go down. By the way,
Follow the dollar.
We're talking with Delphia Howze, and we need to take our halftime break. I'm having a great conversation with you, and I hope everybody's listening, because this is real meaningful stuff when we talk about inclusion, taking care of each other, being kind to each other. It really is a big deal, and she's working to make it happen in corporations and businesses all over. And when we come back, I want to ask her, how many businesses are still resistant to and if you're listening to this and not watching, she just rolled her eyes, but we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We have Delphia Howze is with us today. She's an inclusion specialist, and she can come to your company and has done with this and in many different types of companies, from banking to retail to construction and by the way, just so everybody knows, if we were not inclusive with construction workers, we would have no construction going on. So some of that is by necessity, or if you're a farmer and you've got people that are in the fields and stuff like you really have to learn how to be inclusive, or you're going to be picking your crops by yourself. But I wanted to ask her, why are businesses still, and I'm in my head, I'm hearing people saying, oh, no, this is how we've always done it, and this is what we do, and this is how it is, and stuff. How many businesses and people are still resistant to an inclusive environment?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I would say upward towards, there's a large percentage, right? So, the numbers are staggering with regard to how many organizations, and we'll just talk US based, have not given direct strategy around inclusion. That percentage is probably around 30%, last I checked. And, the interesting thing about it is, even with those organizations that do espouse that they have developed an inclusion strategy, sometimes they're not very strong, right? Their inclusion strategy is, we had a potluck. We we had all of the food, right? But it's a little more comprehensive than that. So there is a large, and I don't fault the organizations that haven't focused on it. I mean, it's not easy, right? Because it does require you to look internally at some things that you typically haven't observed, and make some tough decisions. But the reality is the outcome is far better than not.
Why do you think it is that there's a segment of our country that when we talk about DEI, that they are so resistant? And I've heard all kinds of stories that it's anti-white worker, and that it's promoting people who shouldn't be promoted. And as a matter of fact, one politician, remember that plane crash that happened right in Washington, D.C., between a helicopter and a plane? There was a guy that said, "Oh yeah, that was because of DEI." And why do you think that they've made it such a boogeyman when it really is designed to bring equality to everybody? And if you want to send me a letter about that, you can send it to Kevin at I Don't Give a Crap. That would be great. So,
well, I have two thoughts around that. I think the first one is, we've not defined what it means, right? We as a society, you ask 5 different people down the line what it means, and you're going to get 5 different answers, literally. And they're all rooted in misunderstanding, I believe. We've taken 3 distinct words and we've lumped them all together and not defined what that whole acronym really means. And so, that's first thing, creating a common language around what are we talking about? And because we don't have a common language, and the discomforts that we've talked about before, and the way in which we have operated in terms of differences, right? We don't take the time to explore how it all comes together and how it all intersects. Diversity look at that word independently. It's about differences and similarities in any given environment, right? It's a fact, right? We're going to have diversity no matter where we are. If you have 2 people in a room, there are elements of diversity. So that's something that we can't get away from. But then we put equity in there, right? And we didn't define equity. Some people define equity as equality, which they're 2 different things. We did not create a common understanding of what we were talking about there. Then we get to inclusion, and then that's independently, well, we've talked all around inclusion today, but we know that that is about creating the environment in which people feel welcome, right? And so then we lumped it all together. Now we created this acronym, and people started to believe that it was only about one demographic group, one gender, one, color, whatever the case may be. And that's not true. Go back to what diversity is. It's about all of the mixtures and differences and similarities in any given environment. So that's one thing in terms of why I think that's why we haven't gotten there. Right. I think that also, when you think about the fact that we've not been required to really play nicely in the sandbox, right? There's no distinct requirement. So yeah, maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't. For a while we had, various regulations that said that we had to, focus on making sure that our environments were conducive for all individuals, right? And now that tide is shifting a little bit. And so now, we don't really have to do it in those organizations. Many organizations are removing themselves from it. And so we don't have the common language. We didn't understand what it is, and we really don't have to do it. So, it leads people to put it on the back burner.
Well, and I have to laugh at us because we are the silliest people that I think I've ever met. Because for one, there was a time in this country when Italian Americans were discriminated against. Mm-hmm. There was another time when German Americans were discriminated against. Mm-hmm. And another time when Irish Americans were discriminated against. And we look at each other and we go, well, I've got an Irish background, I'm a German background, because we all look the same. So we've assimilated the different cultures into our society but we all look the same. Mm-hmm. And now when you enter into somebody who looks a little bit different, Hispanic people, which are they're now on a crusade to and this isn't a political show, but this bears repeating, to deport all of them. But we also have got white Canadian people who are doing the same thing, and we're not worried about them in the least. Why? Well, I'll let you guys be the judge. But so it then becomes a thing about differences and about how somebody looks different than somebody else. And we've got to get by that. We've got to get around it, because the other thing, as you know, is that there are so many more blended families. What do I mean by a blended family? I mean a white mom or a white dad and a black mom or a black dad, and they've got 3, 4, 5 kids that are now a blended family between the two.
Yes. And it's, kind of going back to where you started in that discussion, it's an us versus them mentality, right? Us versus them. And, when you think about that, again, creating division, creating distinction. But if you really take an intricate look and start to look at the commonalities, something that we continue to say, then we can bridge that divide. But with the blended family, our nation is blended, right? Our nation is truly blended, right? And we continue to, in pockets, there are some pockets that want to continue to find those separate threads of distinction for whatever reason. People have their own reasons, but we're a blended nation by the virtue of who we are. We are a blended nation. And so how do we get beyond ourselves, get beyond our discomfort, get beyond our hate, get beyond our anger, whatever it may be, our frustrations of the past? Yes, we have a very speckled past in our country, right? It's very speckled, and I use that word very lightly, right? But how do we use that to move us forward in a way that doesn't allow us to go back to that?
I think that it is dependent upon every individual to understand and to seek out people that are different than themselves, because they can learn so much. I'll give you an example. You know who Dick Cheney is?
Yeah, I do.
And his daughter, Liz Cheney?
Absolutely.
He was always a rabid anti-gay man. Talked about gay people being less than and stuff until Liz Cheney's sister came out as a lesbian. He's suddenly silent. He's suddenly silent on the topic because he now says, well, wait a minute. I may have been wrong, because my daughter is the same as she was before, but she is a lesbian. And by the way, I love her wife. So why would I hate them? Yes. And so it's working together, and that's what we all need to work on. But you're right. There are some areas, there are some people that are so resistant to somebody who doesn't look like them or act like them that they and that isn't that one of the things that DEI was originally kind of hopefully promoted to do is to break down some of those barriers?
Barriers, absolutely. I'd like to share a story with you, very similar.
I would love to.
You said, I worked with an executive, and we were working through coaching, getting toward greater inclusion, creating a strategic approach there. And through some of our conversations, he came to the realization that he has never promoted a woman into a senior level position. And we worked through that, did some unpackaging, tried to understand his biases, where they were coming from, and came to the realization that his belief was that women did not belong in the workplace. He didn't grow up that way. That's not what he saw at home. That wasn't in his psyche, so to speak, right? In his point of understanding. And so as it became the executive, he did not see women as leaders in this workplace. And so he did not promote them. He did not hire them. He actually thwarted opportunities for some of them to ascend. And he recognized that through our conversations. And the interesting thing was, guess what he was blessed with? He was blessed with two daughters. And
they call that karma.
Karma, yes. And at the time of our interactions, they both were in college. One had graduated from college and entered the workforce. The other was still in college, soon to graduate. The one who was in the workforce began to recognize that she wasn't getting certain opportunities. Went to her dad, shared those experiences, and he said, well, that's discrimination. Why shouldn't you get those opportunities? And they keep putting, your male counterparts in those roles and opportunities. And that was his realization. So it became personal for him. He saw the personal connection of how exclusion would impact someone that he loved. So having those experiences where you sit in it and you recognize that, you play a part in it, that's what we need, are those experiences, and to be vulnerable to those experiences, to be able to say, oh, maybe things can be done a little differently. And maybe I can see people differently and see them for who they are versus for who I want to see them as.
I think it is an absolute crime that we have, and we've done this throughout time, because it wasn't until the 1920s that women got the right to vote. Mm-hmm. You couldn't open up a checking account until the 1970s.
Yes.
And without your husband's permission.
Correct. That was not long ago.
No, I was alive in high school.
When you think about the time span, it's just amazing that a lot of it wasn't that long ago. Wow.
And so we've got 50% of the population, I think it's 50.2 or 50.3, that are women, and we are not utilizing their full potential and brain power to help our country move to a better place. And I just think that's criminal. And by the way, in other countries like Canada, I was talking with a lady who just had a baby, and she said, "Yeah, and she had a baby 6 months ago." And she said, "Yeah, I'm running out of maternity leave, and I've got to go back." I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, we get 6 months to raise our children up here from when they're born, and we get can you be back? You're giving birth tomorrow. Can you be back a day after tomorrow? That would be great if you could do that." Yeah. By the way, we're talking with Delphia Howze, and I need to take this break. Please listen to this, because for me, this is very important. The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt, they've been tested, and still they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. What did you think of that?
I think it was great. Be kind. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? It is, and that doesn't mean that you will be taken advantage of. I think there was, and I may be misquoting it, but be kind with a firm heart, or have a soft heart with firm boundaries.
Firm boundaries. Yep.
Yes. That's great. Right? Have a soft heart with firm boundaries.
And as an example, understand, I don't know if you know this, Delphia, but women have babies. I didn't know if you knew that. And especially women in the workplace, they have babies.
Yeah.
And valuable members of your work staff, they have babies.
Yeah.
And so we need to account for the human things that have happened, because there's some businesses that I know of and have heard of that said, we don't hire women because they have babies and then they have to go on maternity leave. And then we have to find a quiet place for them to breastfeed. And it's like,
that was the executive I worked with. Yes.
And it's like, do you not understand that that's humanity and stuff? And we make allowances for dudes all the time, and we need to make allowances for the human things, because we are losing the value of some of the people that can really make a difference in our society. And I'm so glad you're doing the work that you're doing to involve inclusivity in everything that you do, because goodness gracious, this hate division and fear thing hasn't gone very well, and it's not doing very well, and it's not getting us where we want to go to.
Not at all. Not at all. I tell many people, I say, think about when we were in kindergarten, right? When we were back in kindergarten, we were taught some very specific things, right? You don't call each other names. You don't bite. You don't kick. You don't. Don't be mean to each other. Be kind. Those are things that we were taught in kindergarten. And can we get back to that? Can we get back to that?
I certainly hope so, because, and I guess one of the things that we're going to have to do is there are people in power that are using the hate, division, and fear to divide us up into groups so that they can control what it is that we do. And we need to understand that is their motivation, and to fight against that, because it doesn't serve anybody other than their short-term goals of retaining power. Does that make sense?
Power is a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing, and it causes. It's a great thing when it's used for all. It's a horrible thing when it's used for a very select and minimal group of individuals. I think that if we recognize that power, everyone possesses a level of power, right? Through discretionary power, using their voices, speaking up, questioning, appreciative inquiry, all of those things, we can help create a more powerful environment, nation, country, world, all of those things. But I think that we have to recognize the power of power.
Well said. If Rochelle was here, we'd be putting that on a bumper sticker now. I'll have to have her review this so that we can put it on a bumper sticker, because that is really so true. Yeah. And power is being used inappropriately in a lot of cases, and it's keeping people separate. And separation and separateness doesn't work. We've got, especially in this country, because we are getting more and more inclusive as far as blended families. And by the way, I can't pronounce her first name. Tamara Hannah said she's loving this discussion. So thank you. Thank you for listening. And I am apologize. I can't pronounce your first name, but that's
Tiara, maybe Tiara.
There you go. There you go. And that works for me. And that is so vital for all of our well-being going now and going into the future, because we can't stay divided, because I don't know if you noticed, but people like to have sex with each other, and they like to have sex with people that don't look like them sometimes, and so they're going to still make babies that don't look like either of them, and they're going to be a blended family, and that's that's not a bad thing. That's a really good thing.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree. Kevin, think about this, right? Exclusion, right? We all have felt some level of exclusion at some point in our lives, whether it was, yesterday, 2 months ago, back in high school, back in kindergarten, we felt that. And if every listener on this session would think back to a time when they first felt excluded, and think about the feeling that they had with regard to that, I guarantee it wasn't great. I'm sure that it did not feel good. So why do we want to create those types of environments where people feel excluded? Think back, reflect on yourself, on, the space that it put you in. Were you able to be your best self when you felt excluded? Were you able to do your best work in those situations? The answer is no. So the answer is to focus on how do we as individuals create inclusion and recognize that, yes, people are going to have babies who don't look like, us or them, or they're going to look different. We need to be inclusive.
No question about it. When I was a general manager and I took over the new restaurant, and I called this general staff meeting, and I said, who's the most important person here? And they all looked at me, and several of them pointed at, you're the general manager, so that must mean that you're the most important. And I said, no, I'm the least important. The most important is our dishwasher and our dishwashing personnel, because if they don't have clean dishes, the cooks can't put clean dishes on, or great food on the clean dishes. The waitresses can't take a dirty dish out to a table. And so we all are dependent upon each other for the betterment of all, so that we can all make a living from this facility. The hostesses, if they are mean to the guests, those guests aren't coming back. If the waitresses can't do their job, if the bartenders pour a lousy drink, if the cooks take forever, if the dishwasher doesn't keep the things clean, if the busboy doesn't keep the place looking decent, then none of us are going to make money. It's not contingent upon one or the other. It's all. Absolutely. And they looked at me like, who the hell is that guy?
Yes, but you hit that's absolutely right. It's a full ecosystem. It's all of the elements creating the dynamic that is giving that ultimate customer the wonderful experience.
And we need to I'll say need. We need to do that for each other. We need to do that for our country, because that's the only way we are going to regain where we were. For instance, we're no longer one in math. We're no longer one in healthcare. We're no longer one in a lot of different things. And we really have some work to do. And we only are going to get that done if we come together and have an inclusive environment. And Delphia, Howze, you are phenomenal. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And and thank you for agreeing with me.
Yes, I agree with you that I'm wonderful. No, I appreciate being here.
You are wonderful. You're going to have to come back, because this is a topic that isn't going away until we get to a point where, and I hope this happens in my lifetime, because I'm seeing it more in kids now.
Yeah.
In high school kids and stuff. I drove a bus for 12 years.
Okay.
And during that time, there were 3 young ladies, maybe 14, 15, 16, right around in there. And they were talking about a particular young man who they found particularly attractive. And the conversation was like this. Oh, have you seen his skin? Isn't his skin wonderful? Yeah. Where does he come from? And he said, well, I think he's part Filipino and he's part Colombian and part from Cuba. And they said, well, that's a wonderful combination. And his skin is so pretty. It's that nice olive. So it's like, they get it more than us old folks do.
Yeah.
That people are people, and we need to regard each of them with equality and with all of that. And I know you agree with that.
Absolutely. Human-centric integrity. That's where we need to get, for sure. Yes.
And until we get there, it's not going to be a great, but I firmly believe, I have faith in humanity that we're going to get there.
We are. We will come together. We will do it in pockets, in silos, until ultimately we just coalesce, and it will be wonderful.
And I want to thank you so much for being here. If somebody hold on. Include You, Leading Inclusion from Where You Are, Delphia's book, and go to your website, please.
Yes. D Howze Solutions. That is the website, dhowzesolutions.com. You can go there and find all kinds of information and support.
And I want to thank you so much for being here. I was having so much fun talking to you. I almost forgot. But the name of the book again is Including You, Leading Inclusion from Where You Are.
That's it.
And from where you are to where we're going, it's important for all of us to get along and to take care of each other, be kind to each other. And if we did that, not only are we serving the universe and the higher power, whatever you choose to call it, him, her, whatever it is, but we're serving each other, and we're doing it in a way that we can help our country better, get better and grow.
Yes.
So, Delphia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for being awesome.
I don't know about that, but I'm here. So everybody have a great day, and thank you so much. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin